House members are back in their districts right now, and the Republicans are touting the one big beautiful bill and other successes of the Republican unified government over the first 6 months. But the Senate, well, they're still here in town, and actually, might be here for a while, thanks to what Senate Majority Leader John Thune described as a historic level of obstruction from Democrats.
When I say this is a historic level of obstruction from Democrats, I mean it. That's not a Republican talking point. It's just a fact. Democrats haven't offered a shred of courtesy to President Trump, to the voters who elected him, or the people who have stepped up to serve our country in his administration.
Over 130 nominations are stalled on the Senate floor. Why? Joining me now to discuss this and more, U.S. Senator Steve Daines of Montana, who serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Senate Finance Committee and the Foreign Relations Committee. He's part of the Senate leadership. Senator Daines, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to join you, Tony.
All right, so answer the question. Why do we have 130 nominees that are waiting confirmation stalled on the Senate floor?
Well, Leader John Thune had it right in that clip you showed, Tony. This is an unprecedented level of obstruction by Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. This is an all-time low watermark. We've never seen this kind of opposition. In fact, President Trump now, as Trump president number 47, is the first president to go this many days, virtually 6 months into his administration, without a single nomination via consent or agreement with the Democrats. In other words, they're not giving us any consent agreements, which allows us to reduce some of the time, these sometimes archaic rules of the Senate. And this has never before been seen. That's the biggest problem. And so we are playing hardball right now with Chuck Schumer. And we are negotiating, getting the list from the president. President Trump's given us what he needs to see in August. We've got that list. We're negotiating right now, and either Schumer's going to cut a deal with us, or we're going to play hardball with him.
So just so our folks understand this, the rules require allow for so much debate over each nominee.
Right.
And what the Democrats are doing is using up all of that time, and knowing that the outcome is predetermined because you only have to have 51 votes and you're going to confirm these individuals. They're going to get confirmed, but they're just using, well, actually, let me play this clip from Senator Schumer. Play clip number 9.
Senate and House Democrats are united in creating an America that works better for everyone, not just the wealthy, not just the well-connected. And we will use every tool at our disposal in the appropriations process and beyond to fight back against the disastrous Donald Trump Republican agenda.
And that is dragging your feet and making sure that no agreements are reached.
Yeah. Let me contrast 2 important points here, Tony. First of all, I talked about an unprecedented level of obstruction from Chuck Schumer. They're trying to stop President Trump, throw sand in the gears every chance they have. But on the other hand, we've actually been the most productive U.S. Senate under John Thune's leadership, working with President Trump, in the history of the Senate. We've cast more votes, advanced more legislation, gotten more nominations through the old-fashioned way with John Thune's leadership. But the problem is there's some 1,100 political nominations at any given time for any president. It takes up to 3 years or more to fill all the nominations. Tony, this is a broken institution in terms of the process. And so there's some things we can do, like we've made reforms in the past, to get Supreme Court noms through, Circuit Court noms through, important nominations by shortening time with simply 51 votes and not 60. And we're prepared to take additional action if needed to make sure President Trump gets his nominations through in a timely fashion.
When Joe Biden was the president, his about 60%, I believe, of his nominees were approved by unanimous consent. So the Republicans actually worked with the Democrats, knowing what the outcome was going to be,
right.
But just so it wouldn't waste time, the Senate could get work done. But you're saying that's not happening now.
It's the worst we've ever seen, Tony. It's just the facts. Zero cooperation. Generally, there's cooperation with some, ambassador nominations. Very important. We get our ambassadors representing the United States of America around the world, what we call our soft power. Very important. Right. And yet zero cooperation from Democrats.
Senator Daines, is this setting a dangerous precedent of political division? I mean, the Senate is supposed to be the place where people kind of get along, but it doesn't look like it.
Well, there's not getting along in terms of cooperation from Chuck Schumer. There's still collegiality between members, but I want to see results.
Right.
We got to see.
Well, that's what the American people want. They want to see things happen.
The first thing I chatted with President Trump when I was chairman of the Senatorial Republican Committee in this last election cycle, I did that for 2 years, elected leadership position. One of the first meetings I had with President Trump was in January of 23, down in Mar-a-Lago. And I told him the most important thing we can do, Mr. President, remember then we only had 49 Republicans. We were in the minority. So we got to give you the majority so we can get your legislation passed, that one big, beautiful bill, and get your nominations through. Well, now we have the nominations. We have the majority, I should say, but it still takes some cooperation to go faster. We can do it through brute force, but it's way too slow. We've got to get President Trump's team on the battlefield as soon as possible. That's the hardball moment right now we're facing, Tony.
Right.
Negotiations.
Well, you got one cabinet member too. You got the UN ambassador, Mike Waltz, is waiting for confirmation. So that's kind of a critical point right now with what's happening internationally. All right, Senator, we're out of time, but always great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us.